Welcome to English with Zenko Master. Get ready to learn something new today.
I was sitting in the bathtub when I heard it for the first time. A soft, slow crying coming from behind the wall near the window. At first, I thought it was the wind or maybe an animal outside. But it wasn't. It was a voice. A woman's voice. And she was crying. I stayed still and listened. The sound came and went, like waves. It wasn't loud, but it felt close. Too close. It sounded like someone was trapped behind the wall. I got out of the water quickly, wrapped a towel around myself, and pressed my ear to the wall. The crying stopped. I moved into this small flat 2 days ago. It was old but affordable. After the breakup with Jonas, I needed space, and this place was quiet. That's what I liked about it. But now, I wasn't sure it was the right choice. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time the wind touched the window, I thought of that voice. I lay in bed and stared at the ceiling. I tried to tell myself it was nothing. Maybe I was imagining things because I was tired. But I couldn't forget the sound. It had pain in it. Real pain. The next morning, I checked the walls again. I tapped them, listened closely, even looked for holes or strange marks. Nothing seemed wrong. I felt silly doing it, like I was acting out of a movie. But I couldn't stop myself. I needed to know where that voice came from. I asked the landlord if anyone had lived here before me. He said the flat was empty for almost a year. The last person had left without warning. No one knew why. He smiled like it was a funny story, but it didn't feel funny to me. I asked him if the walls were thin or if you could hear neighbors. He said no. The place had thick walls, soundproof almost. That night, the crying came again. This time, it was longer and clearer. I was brushing my teeth when I heard it. I turned off the water and stood still. My hand holding the toothbrush froze in the air. There it was. The same soft sobbing. It came from the same wall, behind the bathroom window. The window looked out at a narrow alley between buildings. No one could stand there. No one could fit behind that wall. I didn't sleep again. I kept thinking, who was she? Why was she crying? Was she real? The next day, I bought a small recorder and placed it in the bathroom. If the voice came again, I wanted to catch it. I needed proof, even if it was just for myself. I played music during the day and tried not to think too much, but the night made everything louder. Around 1 a.m., I heard it again. Longer this time. There was a pattern to it. Crying, silence, then a sound like breathing. Deep, slow breathing. The recorder picked it up. When I listened the next morning, I heard it clearly. It wasn't in my head. I sent the file to my friend Dana. She worked in sound editing. I didn't explain much. I only asked if she could clean up the audio and tell me what she heard. She said she'd check and get back to me. 2 days passed with no sound. I started to relax. Maybe it was over. Maybe whatever it was had passed. But on the third night, the voice returned, stronger. This time, there were words. I couldn't understand everything, but I heard one thing clearly. Help me. My body froze. I felt cold from the inside. It was like something touched my bones. I didn't know what to do. I stood in the dark bathroom and listened again. The voice repeated it. Help me. Then, crying again, I left the light on all night. I didn't move from the sofa. I watched the wall from the living room like it might break open. But nothing happened. Dana finally called. Her voice sounded strange. She asked me where I recorded the sound. I told her it was from the bathroom wall. She was quiet for a moment, then said, "It sounds like someone's trapped in a small space, maybe a box or a room. But the echo is strange, like underground echo." I felt sick. Underground? I asked her if it was a prank or if the sound could come from a pipe or machine. She said no. She was sure it was human. A woman. Early 30s, maybe. The fear in Dana's voice made my hands shake. I started to ask around the building. Most people didn't know much. A man on the third floor said something strange, though. He remembered a woman who lived in my flat years ago. Her name was Elisa. She was quiet. Never spoke to anyone. Then one day, she disappeared. He said police came, but nothing was found. Everyone thought she ran away. But now, he said, maybe she didn't. That night, I couldn't stay inside. I packed a small bag and slept at Dana's place. I played the voice again and again. Help me! It felt like it was meant for me. I began searching for Elisa online. I found an old photo. Her face was soft, her eyes large. She looked kind. The last note on her profile was 4 years ago. After that, nothing. No updates. No contact. I couldn't stop thinking, was she still there? Was she inside the walls? Was she alive? 1 week passed. No more sounds. I returned to the flat. I felt like I was being watched, even when the room was empty. I tried to ignore it, but I could feel something was wrong. Then, on the 8th night, the crying came again, louder than ever. It filled the bathroom. I stood at the door, heart racing, and for the first time I whispered, "Who are you?" The voice stopped. The silence after felt like a scream. Then a single sentence came, quiet and slow. "You live in my grave." I ran. Before I share the rest of my story, could you please tell me where you're from? It gives me strength to know there's someone out there who listens to me, who understands me. It means a lot to me. I did not sleep that night. I sat in my car outside Dana's building, holding my phone in both hands. I kept playing the voice over and over again. "You live in my grave." It didn't feel like a threat. It felt like a warning. A message. But I didn't understand it. Dana opened the door quickly when I rang. Her eyes widened when she saw my face. I must have looked pale. I didn't say much. I only asked to stay the night. She made tea and put on soft music, trying to calm me. But my thoughts were loud, and nothing could stop them. In the morning, I told her everything. She listened quietly, her expression hard to read. When I finished, she nodded slowly. She believed me. That helped more than she knew. I didn't feel crazy anymore. I felt scared, but no longer alone. We went back to my flat together. It felt different with her there, less haunted. We looked around the bathroom carefully. Dana tapped the tiles, knocked on the walls, even checked behind the mirror. Then she paused. Her hand touched a small corner near the floor, close to the pipes. There was a tiny crack. We pulled the edge gently. It was a thin panel, painted to look like the rest of the wall. Someone had covered it long ago. Behind it was a narrow, dark gap. It wasn't deep, only wide enough to hide something small. Inside, we found a broken piece of wood, some old wires, and a thin gold chain with a small red stone. I held it in my hand. It was cold, dusty, but beautiful. I turned it over. There was something written on the back, but the letters were too worn to read. Dana looked at it and said softly, "Maybe this was hers." That night, I wore the chain around my neck. I wanted to give the voice a sign that I found something that belonged to her. I waited in the dark, eyes on the wall, heart beating fast. At first, nothing happened, but then the crying returned, softer, like before. I closed my eyes and whispered, "Elisa." The crying stopped. There was silence. Then a new sound. Breathing. Slow and steady. And finally, words. "You found it," the voice said. "Thank you." I felt a tear fall down my cheek. I whispered, "What do you want me to do?" The voice was quiet for a long time. Then it said, "Look under the floor." Then silence again. The next morning, Dana and I returned to the bathroom. We checked every tile, every edge. After some time, we found another loose part. This one was near the wall, under the small cupboard. We used tools to lift it. Underneath, there was old wood, and under that, dust, dirt, and something wrapped in plastic. We unwrapped it slowly. It was a book. Not a diary, not something personal. More like a notebook used for lists. Inside were pages full of names, numbers, and locations. Strange codes, some phone numbers, addresses. It looked like something someone wanted to keep secret. At the very back was a photo. Elisa, standing next to a man I didn't recognize. He was tall, serious, wearing a black coat. His arm was around her, but her smile looked forced. On the back of the photo, in small handwriting, were 2 words, He lied. I didn't know what it meant, but I knew this was important. Maybe this was what got her trapped, or killed, or erased. Dana and I took everything and left the flat again. I couldn't stay there, not until I knew the truth. We searched online for the man in the photo. After hours, we found a news article from 5 years ago. His name was Martin Rokes. He was a property owner, wealthy, powerful, accused of illegal business, but the case was closed with no charges. I checked the dates. Elisa lived in the flat at the same time the case was active. Was she a witness? A helper? A victim? I sent the photo and notes to an old friend from university. He worked as a journalist now. I didn't give many details, just asked if he could look into it quietly. He agreed. I waited. Meanwhile, the voice kept coming. Each night, it said more. It spoke in short phrases, like someone too weak to talk fully. She said things like, "He came at night," and "No one believed me." Sometimes she cried. Sometimes she whispered my name. That was the hardest part. One night I asked her, "Are you still here?" She answered, "Until it ends." I didn't know what it meant, but I promised her I would not stop. I would help her end it. The journalist friend replied after a few days. He found records showing Elisa had filed a police report against Martin Rokes. It never went forward. No further documents. It just vanished. He also found that Elisa's name was on a missing persons list, but only for a short time, then marked as found. No details. He said, "It looks like someone made her disappear twice. Once from the world, once from memory." The chain around my neck felt heavy. I looked at the wall and whispered, "We're close." I returned to the building manager and asked him about changes made in the flat over the years. He looked surprised but showed me old repair logs. I noticed something odd, a major plumbing change 6 years ago, right around the time Elisa disappeared. The repair order said, "Wall cavity sealed. Noise complaints resolved." I felt sick. I asked him if anyone had ever tried to open that wall again. He said no. I didn't wait. I called Dana and told her everything. We went back to the flat with tools. With her help, I removed part of the bathroom wall near the pipes. Behind the panel, there was insulation, thick and yellow, and then something harder, a board. And behind that, space. The smell hit us first. Dust, old wood, and something else. Rot. We both stepped back. Dana called the police. They came quickly. After hours of work, they found a hidden room. Small, no door. Just walls all around. Inside was a thin mattress, old clothes, and bones. Human bones. They confirmed later it was Elisa. I cried for a long time that night, for her pain, for the years she spent trapped in silence, for the voice that had waited so long to be heard. The police reopened her case. The news came out slowly. Martin Rokes was questioned again, then arrested. This time, the evidence held. Hidden files, proof of threats, and Elisa's note. He lied. It was over. On the night he was taken away, I sat in my bathroom with the gold chain in my hand. I waited. The wall was quiet. No crying, no whispers, nothing. And then, one last breath, a soft one, like someone finally resting. I whispered, "You're free now." She didn't answer. She didn't need to. I stayed in the flat for a few more months. The walls never cried again. The nights were silent. And for the first time in years, so was my heart. Even after Elisa's case was closed, I found it difficult to return to normal life. The flat was peaceful now, but the silence felt different. It was not heavy like before. It was soft, like a blanket, like someone had left quietly, without pain, without fear. And I knew it was her. She had finally found peace. I stayed in the flat not because I needed to, but because I wanted to. For those few months, it became more than a place to live. It became a place of memory, a place where something important happened, a place where someone's voice was finally heard after years of silence. People from the media tried to contact me. They wanted to hear the story, use my voice for their shows. I refused them all. This wasn't a story for headlines or news articles. It was personal. It belonged to Elisa. I wouldn't turn her pain into entertainment. It didn't feel right. Dana supported my choice. She came over often, sometimes just to sit and talk. We would drink tea in the small kitchen and look out the window. She said it still gave her chills to remember the voice, the hidden room, the cold air behind the wall. We didn't talk about it all the time, but it lived between us like a quiet truth. One morning, I received a letter from Elisa's sister. I didn't even know she had family. The police must have shared my name with her. The letter was simple. She thanked me for not giving up. She said Elisa always felt unseen in life, but now, because of me, she could be seen again. She included a small photo of them as children. I kept it near the window next to a plant. Life began to move slowly again. I got a new job. I started writing again. I walked more, read more, even smiled more. But something inside me had changed. I saw the world differently now. I noticed people's silences. I watched the way they looked away or held something back. I knew the signs of hidden pain. One evening while walking home, I passed a woman sitting alone at a bus stop. She looked tired, her face pale in the streetlight. I hesitated, then sat beside her. We didn't talk, but I stayed with her until her bus came. She smiled softly before leaving. That was enough. That was everything. It had been 5 months since Elisa's voice disappeared. I had not heard a sound in the walls since that final breath. But one night, something strange happened. I woke up around 2 a.m. My room was still, the moonlight soft against the walls. I sat up, unsure why I had woken. Then I heard it. Not crying. Not a whisper. A different sound. A laugh. A small, warm laugh. Like someone smiling in the dark. It faded quickly, like a dream. I sat still for a long time, heart beating fast. But I didn't feel fear. I felt peace. Maybe it was my mind. Maybe it was memory. Or maybe, for one last moment, Elisa had returned to say goodbye. Whatever it was, I whispered, "Thank you," and then went back to sleep. A year passed. I moved to a new apartment in a different part of the city. It was brighter, larger, filled with plants and books. But sometimes, in quiet moments, I thought about that small flat, the cracked tile, the voice behind the wall. It became a part of me, a story I carried in my bones. I volunteered for a local group that helped women in crisis. It felt like the right thing to do. I listened to their stories, their fears, their hopes. Some of them had never told anyone their truth before. I remembered Elisa and how her truth was hidden for so long. I didn't want that to happen again. I also started writing a book. Not about Elisa directly, but about silence, about hidden things, about voices that go unheard. I wanted to create a space where pain could become light, where secrets could turn into strength. The words came slowly, but they came. I wrote in the mornings when the world was still quiet. One day, I visited the cemetery where Elisa was buried. Her sister had placed a simple stone with her name, date of birth, and the words, "You are heard." I stood in front of it, the wind soft against my face. I didn't cry. I smiled, because I knew she was free now, no longer hidden, no longer trapped. Later, I met Elisa's sister for coffee. We talked for hours. She told me stories from their childhood, how Elisa loved to sing, how she wanted to be a teacher, how she was always afraid of being forgotten. I listened carefully. Every detail felt like a piece of a puzzle I had been carrying. When we said goodbye, she hugged me tightly and whispered, "You gave her what I couldn't." I didn't know what to say, so I only nodded. That moment stayed with me. Years went by. I changed jobs again, moved twice, started a new chapter in life. But I never forgot Elisa. Her name lived quietly inside me, like a small candle that never burned out. Sometimes I would dream of her, not in pain, not crying, but walking freely in a wide field, laughing in the sunlight. I never heard another voice in a wall again, but I listened more carefully to the world around me. I paid attention to people's silences. I learned that sometimes the quietest people have the loudest stories, and sometimes the most ordinary places carry the deepest truths. That flat had looked like nothing special when I moved in. Old walls, broken lights, small rooms. but it held a story no one else could see, and I had become the person to hear it, to hold it, and to carry it forward. I never saw Martin Roques again. He was sentenced and disappeared into the system. The news stopped talking about him, but for me, it was never about him. It was always about her. About a woman who was hurt, silenced, and hidden, and who finally found someone willing to listen. And maybe that's what we all need. Someone to listen. Someone to believe us. Someone to say, "I hear you." Because sometimes a voice in the dark isn't a ghost or a dream. Sometimes it's a person asking not to be forgotten. And if we're quite enough, brave enough, and open enough, we can be the one to answer. I hope you have enjoyed the story. Like and comment if you want to hear more soon.